see what you can find.
Welcome to another episode of The Feminine Critique. I'm Emily.
And I am Christine.
And we will always know what you did that summer. There, okay, I've said it. This has bothered me for now, how many years? 20-something years? 30 years almost? 26, 24, 25, 26? 26 years? Is that how long ago part two was?
I hope we just keep doing this. Let's just
spend an hour working through math.
22, 25.
Yeah.
The first one came out in... Oh, wait. Are you talking about the first one or the second one? The second one came out in 98, right?
98. Okay. What is 98 to 20? 26 years. I got it. I did get it. On my second try, I got it.
You had it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are today doing something very special. Christine, tell the people what we're doing.
Oh, we're talking about all three. Yes, there are three.
There are three.
I Know What You Did Last Summer movies.
Yes. The first one, 1998. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Makes sense, right? As a title. It's a great title, too. I think it's actually one of the reasons I think this movie was so popular was that it did have a great title.
Yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
So then it comes back 1 year later with...
I still know what you did
last summer, which is weird because now we're talking about 2 summers ago.
But it works still.
No, it doesn't. No, it should have been. You want to know? I'm going to fix it. I still know what you did that summer. Bam, done.
But what if they're referencing last summer?
Everybody knows what they did last summer because a bunch of people died and then everybody knew about it. They still don't know what they did the summer before. Like, that's still the thing.
But Julie is away at college, so it's arguable that the people that she might be interacting with wouldn't know what happened.
But because it's still referencing the heart of it is the thing that happened in the summer of 1996, not the thing that happened in the summer of 1997. 98, not 99. You know what I'm saying. Yes, indeed. And then lastly, I'll always know what you did that summer.
Arguably the best of the three.
This is going to be a ride. For those of you playing along at home, I believe the first 2 movies are streaming on Paramount Plus. However, all 3 movies are available in one box on 3 separate DVDs, currently on Amazon for $10.
Ooh, a steal.
It's a steal. It is a good deal, actually. I think all of them have I didn't get to listen to it, but I believe all 3 have a director commentary.
I've watched the special features for the third one.
I'm sure you have.
They're not that great, if memory serves. I get why, but for me, I wish there was more robust features for that one.
Okay.
I have questions. Is basically
fair. Okay. We're going to dive into a lot.
Okay.
Before we do, let's set the table a little bit more because we are going to talk about all 3. We are going to spoil all 3. We will probably. We'll go in order, but there's going to be a lot that ties into one to the other, so you really you should just watch all 3 if you don't want to be spoiled on them. There are 2 other, no, maybe 3 now, other bits of properties in this universe that we should reference or mention. There was a television series for Amazon Prime. What was it? 2020. I think it was COVID years, heavy COVID years. Mm-hmm. Did you watch that at all?
I tried. Excuse me, I'm very I guess I'm choked up by all this summer talk. I tried. I think we got maybe 2 or 3 episodes in. I didn't get it. That tends to be one of my favorite genres, though, like teen slashers. It seems like that's where we put the type of movie that like Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and even like Final Destination to a degree. That's so like the Scream TV show, the new Pretty Little Liars. Like I feel like it's good and it works. Except this one didn't, which is disappointing because I have a deep and mysterious love for this franchise.
For the whole property.
Yeah.
I never watched it, never got around to it. And then the last thing we should mention, this franchise is based on a piece of literature.
Which I did read.
Me too!
I have read the Lois Duncan book. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Lois Duncan. If you've never read a Lois Duncan book, you should. Everything you like is based on those books.
So I was not a big Lois Duncan. I don't know that I'd ever read anything by her, which is odd, but maybe not, because I know for me, and you and I are the same age, we both grew up probably at reading in parallel worlds had the same library cards, but also very different. I just never, for whatever reason, didn't read Lois Duncan. I feel like she was usually on the same shelf with Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine. I didn't read that many of those books because I kind of went from like young adult straight to like V.C. Andrews and Stephen King. So I would kind of read like a Christopher Pike book really quickly here and there in between things. But I just never, I think because I thought of Lois Duncan as not as much a horror writer and I guess she really wasn't, right?
No, I don't think she thought that's what she was doing.
Right.
So I didn't read those books as a child at all. I was like in my late 30s.
Nice.
And I just was like, hey, this is great. So I think I've read all of them, like the standard fiction, like Summer of Fear, Killing Not Mrs. Tingle. There's a guy, I don't remember the real title, but like I read all those because I mean it's kind of undeniable how they have informed that like kind of 90s slasher genre. But yeah, I don't think if I've read about her, she kind of had an interesting and tragic life. She also wrote Hotel for Dogs. So I don't think she thought that. I think she thought she was telling morality. Well, she was telling morality tales, but I don't think that she really classified them as like schlocky or like exploitative. I think they were really supposed to give you a sense of what it was like to be a teenager during those times and like the struggles that you would deal with, which sadly I think is missing from the majority of the adaptations. They go just fully into like what happens if all my friends die, which isn't really necessarily what the thrust of those books are. So they're interesting companion pieces, but like the movies, I think, are their own things.
Oh, in this case, in particular, definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I read the book this week. I just finished it last night.
Oh, fun! I haven't read it for years.
Well, here's what's really neat about it, because I remember when the first movie came out, I had read Christopher Pike's Chain Letter, and I thought this movie was ripping that off at first. Because if anybody out there has read Chain Letter, you will understand why I'm saying that. Because it's also about teenagers who hit somebody with their car and drive away, and a year later they're being, taunted by somebody who knows what they did. And then I even remember when this movie came out, being mad, and then immediately the first thing I read was based on a book by Lois Duncan. So I was like, okay, it's something. Did that? So wait, Christopher Pike probably ripped off. I know what she did last summer. And the book, so something that Lois Duncan apparently did, which is really cool, is in, I guess, more recent years, and she passed away, I think 2016, but something she would do when, like, they were going to reissue her books is she would go in and make some updates.
She would update it. So I was reading, Gallows Hill, I think, and the girl had a cell phone, and I kept thinking, like, how does she have a cell phone? And then I had to do a little digging and be like, oh no, they totally got updated, and it makes for this kind of weird, like wholesome snapshot of an unrealistic modern teenager.
Yes, because there's an aspect of it that, well, young people do interact, communicate differently today because of, access to cell phones than they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I guess the book was 73, which I thought it was later, but that's very early. But I think what's really neat about it, because so the reissue of I Know What You Did, I think it was 2010. So characters have cell phones. There's mention of the internet. They can text. What I think is great about that is how it's so easy to watch horror movies today that were made in the 70s, 80s, 90s and say like, oh, this all would have been averted if they had cell phones.
Yeah.
If only they had the internet, they could have figured this out. And you're reading this book, which again is very different from the movie. But even with that being said, you're like, oh yeah, they make no difference whatsoever. Like, and that speaks well, I think, to your storytelling, that when you place it in a somewhat modern time, it still works in exactly the way it does. A, because your story was strong, but I think more importantly, you crafted very clear characters in what you were doing. Because the book gives all 4 points of views, which is, again, I was not expecting reading it. I just assumed it was going to be Julie's point of view. But the book actually, you get Barry, you get Helen, and they are so... What is great about it, And this is somewhat to the movies, but I think is kind of a kernel of the book that I think is lacking elsewhere, is how selfish the characters are and how they are called out on it in a way that it is a morality tale, and you're reading it thinking, fuck these people, but so is the book. And yeah, and it's very different. The book, they hit a child, not a grown man. They are something that I think is, and we'll dive into the plot of the movie in a second, but in the book, they all are kind of thriving a year later, or doing well enough a year later. It is not the way the movie takes that in a very different direction. And it's not a killer per se, it is not a slasher, but it is a really interesting companion piece. So you can get it from your library. It's out there.
Yeah, and I also recommend Killing Mr. Griffith as well,
Oh.
which is what Teaching Mrs. Tingle is based on, but not at all.
Fascinating.
It's completely different. And talk about burying the morality of a story. That's probably my favorite book because a teacher really does die, and it's this really gray, ambiguous, like, I made a mistake, now what kind of thing. Like this story.
Yep.
But like when in the film adaptation, which came out at a really bad time, and they had to change so much just to make it be a
it was
movie.
right post Columbine. It was very
Yeah.
much I mean, the movie was definitely edited to hell, but also I don't know how good it would have been before then.
No, it's some things I don't feel like maybe are good for adaptation, and that's one of them. But that's my recommendation if you want to read one that's so different from what it became, what you might be more familiar with.
Yep. Well, yeah, it's and definitely read. I Know What You Did Last Summer, because you'll
Yeah.
see you see them on the page, and you can see how they translated to these characters. But there is some different kind of harder nuance to them on the page, even though the book is like 190 pages. Like, it is a YA novel, not written in like grand complexity, but there's some neat things going on there. So the year is 1998. We had in 90. Oh no, I'm sorry. The year is 1997. Why do I keep thinking it's 98? Right? 1997.
The first one, the first one's 97, and then the next one's 98, and then there's a big long break for the third one.
Yes. But 1997, it comes out. I know exactly where I was when it came out because I went to see it in the theaters. It was like October of 97. And my friend and I were supposed to go to like Spirit Night at high school. And instead we're like, nah, let's go to the movies. Let's see that new horror movie. And we were so mad because we didn't like it. And also I was like, man, we would have had more fun at Spirit Night.
I don't remember seeing it. I did not like it for the longest time. For the longest time, the only thing I did like about it is that it opens with the typo negative cover of Summer Breeze, and blink and you miss it, because when it was playing on TV, oftentimes that would play while the other thing was ending. So if you didn't click over like 5 minutes beforehand, you just fully missed the opening. Which was weird. And I was like, well, the opening's the only reason I'm here, because I want to hear this song. But I didn't like it. I loath to admit, I am a brown-haired woman that has had a problem with Jennifer Love Hewitt that I've never been able to articulate. Oh, there's dozens of us. No, it's a very common thing to just not like a woman for no reason. Maybe society said I shouldn't like her, or maybe everybody was just making fun of her so hard that I was like, well, she must suck.
Years ago, not that long ago, a year or two ago, we talked about Heartbreakers, and I think we both like kind of had and I know for me, I can understand exactly what you're saying as a brown-haired woman who was a young teenager in an era when a lot of the boys I had crushes on, like, they were crushing on Jennifer Love Hewitt and Natalie Portman, and I think like I tie the two of them together in a certain way, because I think there was this, they sort of in both kind of represent this type of dream girl who's like a little bit more the thinking man's dream girl, but with Jennifer Love Hewitt, I think in particular, but she is also has a very particular figure and shape, where because she's a brunette and because she has brown eyes and because she has bangs, like a lot of times I think she is like positioned as the smart girl. But also like has a great body that most filmmakers or men do great things with visually. And so I think there was always like that little sense of me thinking, I don't know how good of an actor you are. I think like people just like looking at you, but I've come around. I have some of that I think was me being kind of jealous back in the day. I've seen her do some good work. She's been on a couple of SVU episodes. She's good. And I actually think I'm going to say the best thing about this movie is I think the women in it. I think her and Sarah Michelle Gellar are the best parts of this movie.
So I cannot co-sign that. I still don't like her in these movies. It's not her. It's that I don't like the Julie character in either of them, actually. It's better in the second one, I think. It's just in the first one, there are these like little explosions of like what I guess you would call agency, but it doesn't seem to actually drive her character. It just seems to like pop out of nowhere sometimes. So for me, Helen, the Sarah Michelle Gellar character, is the best character.
Yes.
Like I think that Julie is just kind of there, and I don't like that. She's the moral compass, and when she's being the moral compass, it seems like she's just like a drip that nobody wants to deal with.
Yeah.
And then like when she's activated, it's like it's not consistent. I don't know.
That's fair.
I struggle to explain it, but I don't think that's not Jennifer Love Hewitt's problem. That's not her fault.
No, I agree, and I can see what you mean. I think if you do map her actions in the movie, you're right. I think one of the biggest flaws, I think this movie has a lot of flaws, although I did enjoy watching it, one of the biggest problems is that it feels beholden to, a slasher template, and a very 90s slasher template, where your main girl had to be smart brunette, had to live at the end. Usually her boyfriend had to live at the end with her. But also it's like, oh, here's your final girl, except she kind of does nothing. To the extent that there is a moment towards the end when it is down to Freddie Prinze Jr. and her and the fisherman killer, where like, it's kind of like one's fighting him, the other one's fighting him, and she runs and Fisherman is fighting Freddie Prinze, and Julie just screams like, no, even though nothing's happening. And what that does is it makes Freddie Prinze Jr. look at her and stop and then get stabbed. He lives, again, spoiler alert, but it's like this moment of like, oh God, you can't even do that right. Like, what are you doing just screaming right now? All you're doing is distracting him. You're not helping him in the least. She's not, I guess, to boil it down, yeah, she's not a great final girl. Like, if that's your metric for these things, and I guess inadvertently that is our metric, whether we're approaching it that way or not, because it's hard to not compare this to something like Scream. Well, especially in this case, because there's, I think, an even more important layer to it, which is you have to get behind, you want to, in any slasher, you're never there to see the people die. Like, yes, you're there to see cool death and so on, but you have to be invested in this person's survival in order to care. Mm-hmm. And this movie opens with a really particular thing that happens, which is 4 people who we are supposed to be following and rooting for to varying levels hit a man with their car, and don't just drive away. They hit a man with their car and then realize they also need to dump him in the water, but also while in the water, they need to hold him down. Like, it's not just, hit him with their car and drove away. Like, no, they actively then do kill him. Like, and at one point later on, she's like, because again, the actual story of this movie is so fucking complicated, and I didn't understand it when I was 16.
That's another problem.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's needlessly convoluted. It's not complicated though, but it feels like a hall of mirrors.
Well, because they throw in the big red herring is that they have killed this man. They don't know anything about him. One of them peeks at his wallet. They peek at his wallet? They don't peek at his wallet. I don't remember that part. They kill this guy, right? They do. Yeah. They can say they didn't. They fucking killed him. They hit him with their car. They drown him in the water. He comes alive in the water, and they like kick him and swim away. So it's like, no, he's dead. Sometime later, they know from the news that a man has washed up ashore, and they say, oh, that's who we killed. His name was Ben. He was a young guy. They do research. A year before, his girlfriend died in a car accident. Oh, he must have been sad, so everybody thought he killed himself, which in the opening of the movie gives us a character that looks like he is about to jump off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And then later, through a lot of complications and early internet, we find out, kind of, sort of, and it took me years to figure it out, oh no, they didn't kill that guy. They killed this guy's dead girlfriend's father, who who killed the guy. So they're good guys because they killed a killer. No, you still killed a guy and left him for dead. You're still a bad person.
And I think while all of that is true, I don't think if that was our out, if that was the way that we absolved these kids,
Yep.
it was never clear enough.
No, it was not.
which is, and then you throw in, and maybe I'm jumping to this too soon, you throw in the Anne Heche stuff, and now it's really convoluted and confusing.
So much. Yeah, it's one more red herring. She's there to just be creepy, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't dislike that character or that like relationship. So like Anne Heche is the kid who actually died's sister, right?
Yes.
If I'm wrong about it.
Nope, you got that.
And like Ray, Freddie Prinze Jr. has like this secret like interaction with her because he feels so guilty about,
because he is the one driving the car, and in the book that's different. In the book it is Ryan Phillippe who's driving the car.
Yeah. And like, so that's actually interesting, and it gives like the Ray character like more depth. Like he's been struggling with this too.
Which you need, because Freddie Prinze is such a blank slate.
I think he's great in this.
I think he's very cute, and I get casting him because he's like heartthrobby and very likable. But like, in my like, is he supposed to be a writer? Is he supposed to be like going to New York to be a writer, or did I make that up in my head? There's just nothing to him, I find.
No, no, that is, watching it this time when they're all on the beach, the four kids are on the beach, it really does go like, why are they here?
Why are they friends? Why are these people friends with each other? Don't they seem to just not fit at all?
Yeah, so my assumption is like that Julie and Helen are friends, and they just have these boyfriends, and now by virtue of that, they all get thrust together. These like four people that really shouldn't be interacting as a group.
I guess.
But yeah, it's just some of these things when you have, it's such a simple story, and I think that by trying to overcomplicate it, or by doing what they did, it overcomplicated it, and it didn't make it better or more satisfying. It just made it confusing.
And it, too, the other part of it is like, the movie is very different from the book, but it's also like there is a sister character in the book. And it almost feels like that kind of thing where it's like, okay, no, but I have a template, so I do want to follow the template. And I don't think we said it, but this is written by Kevin Williamson. He wrote it before he wrote Scream. It feels, this is one of the things that to me is both charming and obnoxious in how like of its era it is. Like there's a moment when they're going, I think it's when they're actually going to the Anne Heche house, and Helen, who like is, kind of supposed to be the sort of like surfacey pretty girl beauty queen, doesn't go to college, but like probably had no, like just thought she was going to graduate and be pretty and become famous that way. Like seems kind of dumb, although again, it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, and she makes this character, you care about her. And I think there's moments that like where somebody really pokes out of that. But anyway, they're walking to the house and they start talking, making like references, and the references are like, I feel like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. I feel like Angela Lansbury. And there's something about that that's like, you're saying Angela Lansbury and not Murder, She Wrote. Like, would Sarah Michelle Gellar's character really like have a reference to Angela Lansbury as a 17-year-old in 1997? Like, it just felt very like, oh right, this is Kevin Williamson putting his words in characters' mouths when they don't. And I know that was his thing, and many people loved it. That's why Dawson's Creek was a hit. But occasionally, it also really stands out as like, that's not this person. This person doesn't talk like that.
Yeah, I think it's not that. That actually might be something that I have an issue with the Julie character, and maybe I don't clock it as much with Sarah Michelle Gellar because she just handles dialogue so better. Good. Like there's so much Whedon dialogue that just makes your eyes want to roll out of your head, and she managed it.
Yeah.
So like she can do it, and it really does. Now that you're saying that, it makes me wonder like how much of that like pathos and like engaging kind of stuff was on the page, and how much of it actually just is Sarah Michelle Gellar. Mm-hmm. Because like that Helen character, she is one of my favorite characters in a slasher ever. Like period, end of story. Her stupid dress, that teal tealish seafoam dress on, and her on that dumb float, that lives rent free in my mind. I think about her all the time.
Yep.
And it's only her in that movie. And it seems, if that why is that character so much better than what is essentially our hero?
And it is the performance. It is 100%. It is not right? The actual writing of her. That on paper, that character is, you know, the sexier girl who dies first.
I don't know that I ever realized that before this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, she's so fucking good.
Yeah, really
I think we all underestimated Sarah Michelle Gellar for a very long time.
Go back and look at Scream 2.
Yes.
She again in that is like, well, why are you sure she died? Isn't she
right,
like a main
can't
character?
Can't we bring her back? Because I really want more of her, please. Yes. Mm-hmm. Another thing about this. So this is something I actually think, I don't think this is intentional, but is really clear in all three movies, something they all do much better than a lot of movies of their ilk. All three of them have really specific settings and do a lot with that. And I mean, in the third one, it's Colorado. In the second one, it's resort in Bahamas. In this one, it's, you know, coastal fishing town. I guess it's supposed to be North Carolina.
Yep.
And there's a lot to that as far as it being, you know, there's boats, there's a crab parade, or like whatever the queen of the frog people, whatever the crown she gets to wear is. But the one thing about this that is also a problem is that you're in North Carolina, which is the South, so it makes sense that a lot of people have Southern accents. It's weird that everybody but our pretty leads has Southern accents.
You know, I don't know that I ever realized that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Huh?
And like, it is entirely true. Anywhere you live that has and everywhere has a regional accent. And there's always a spectrum of people that have a very strong one and people that don't. But like, this is one of those things that you're like, oh, nobody, because they filmed in North Carolina. This is like that same area where they were filming all of the WB stuff. So I'm sure a lot of the local actors who have smaller parts are local. So they're talking the way they probably, you know, are supposed to for this town. But yet, of course, even like Ryan Phillippe, who is a dumb, mean jock who is not supposed to be somebody like well-educated, speaks like, you know, a Juilliard-trained actor. It's really annoying. It bothered me this time.
No, you're completely right. I don't know that I've ever really noticed that, because as much as like, obviously, part of the appeal, modern appeal of it is the setting, because like not only is it like I love coastal town, like,
oh yeah,
little coastal town is a great setting, but also like with more modern movies, often we don't actually film where we are, or like if we're on the water, maybe we never see it, maybe we're never actually at the coast. So it's very cool to be here, and I think that does give it a lot more bang than it might have. Like, there's a part, I think, when Julie it's like the next year, and Julie comes into town for the first time, and she's looking for Helen, and Helen's family owns a department, like a little local department store, and that, like, when she pulls up that little like area of town, and the place is called Shivers, and there's a sign, and you're like, wow, this feels like a real place. It feels like a tangible place in time, and that goes a long way to establish the tension, I guess, because when you boil it down, and at one point Ryan Phillippe's character yells it, it's a guy in a slicker. It's just a guy in a slicker. Like, it's not even really that scary, but I think the setting really adds to it. Like, there's this like built-in mystery of like, oh, it's creepy coastal town, and this madman with a hook and a slicker on. Yeah,
in some ways, I think this is probably a better directed film than it is a written film. Its director is Jim Gillespie, who did Venom, which I did not see, ICU, which you talked about last time, and I was going to say Joyride, but it's not that Joyride. It's a different short film, Joyride. That was kind of his big stuff. I mean, he's done TV after that, but this does feel to me like I think some of the chase scenes, some of the scenes of violence are done pretty well. I think the finale is kind of dumb. You're on a boat. It's just silly. But the Sarah Michelle Gellar scene, which again is partially it's because of her. If anybody knew how to run and kind of be in an action scary scene well and sell that, it is, it is Buffy, it is Sarah Michelle Gellar. But I think that scene is directed well. I think you've got cool mannequin stuff going on. There's other things that are odd, like when Barry, Ryan Phillippe, kind of the first big act of violence is, or maybe aside from the one that they clearly threw in after realizing their movie wasn't long enough or they didn't have enough kills and they threw in John Galecki dying. But when Barry gets attacked, when he's like walking down the street in a car and he gets hit by a car, what is going on there? Like the car hits him, or like it cuts as if it was cutting to a commercial, and then he's like in a hospital bed. What was that? Did that throw you off too?
Not really, but probably. I feel like but I think maybe it speaks to what had, the first couple times I saw it, kept it from working for me is because when you say that, what springs to mind for me is like when there's crabs in Julie's trunk. Yep. And then like there's so many things that seem inconsequential or like don't have the weight that they would if this was happening in the real world. And I guess to your point, like that is another thing. Like, well, that doesn't feel real. It feels like we just missed a big part of everybody dealing with this, or like Ryan Phillippe dealing with this, or I don't know. I love this movie.
I don't love it, but I will say I really enjoyed watching it this week. I did not love it in 1997. I don't know that I ever revisited it in all that time. I think it was one of those movies that like made a strong enough impression that I remembered almost everything about it without ever having to go back to it. But rewatching it, 26 years later, it felt two things. One was like, okay, this is a better made movie than I probably gave it credit for all these years. I think I thought this was not a good movie. I think this is a very effective movie in some ways at what it's doing. The other part of this was just, boy, what a weird thing nostalgia is. Because this is so much fun and experience to watch as a 42-year-old who saw this when I was 15 or 16. 15, I guess. Because I remember where I was and who I was when I saw it. And it is so of its time in so many ways. And that's charming and comforting and all of those other things. And it just makes you think a lot of that time period and like, why was this what we were interested in? And I think a lot of it was these sort of teenagers who are kind of their charting their own destiny in a way, right? Like that was the big thing with 90210, was that it was the first show about teenagers that was written for teenagers as if it was written by teenagers. And this is a few years later, but it feels very much like, right, this felt, even though Kevin Williamson was probably in his like late 20s, maybe early 30s when he was writing this, it feels like, oh, but he's writing characters he respects. Even though, again, I have problems with a lot of the writing of this.
Yeah, I can co-sign that. I mean, for me, the nostalgia maybe isn't even as specific as like what you're laying out. It maybe a lot of times I'll look at movies from around this time period and it'll just be like, boy, we didn't know what we had. Yeah. And that's really for me with this one and the second one, what it kind of boils down to is like, for all its faults and how persnickety I may have been about it in the past, like, I mean, I can't muster those same complaints, those same feelings now.
I could not agree more with that. In terms of when we watch bad horror movies today, even theatrically released bad horror films, there is a sense of like laziness and resignation sometimes. And you watch this and you're like, Sarah Michelle Gellar is a fucking star in this movie. And she dies, 50 minutes in. Like, there is something about that does feel like, oh, this is such higher quality than it would have had 10 years ago, especially in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, the aughts, when you had a real sense of laziness about horror, and especially about teen horror.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely it makes it hard to talk about things without that sheen for me of like, well, I know how bad it gets. So like I'm actually super jazzed that this exists.
Yeah.
But yes, I can acknowledge at the time it fell flat for me. Because another thing is, and I think maybe we could just talk about this across all the movies, not the third one, but I guess the first two, is that our killer, and we're in a time where kind of killers matter still. I mean, Freddy, Jason, Mike, I know that like we weren't hitting those heights arguably at the time, but like still the killer was important. And I cannot express that this killer not just visually falls flat, his motivation is muddled and confusing. Yeah. Who he even is, and that continues into the second one.
You are completely right. And I think that was, for me, was the big thing I hated back in 97 when I saw this. I remember walking out of the theater with my friend Jess, and we both didn't like it and were mad. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, at the time, I remember saying, it wasn't even the guy they hit with the car. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't get it the first time I saw it, that like, oh no, because I thought they hit the kid, and then this was the guy who was just mad at the kid anyway and wanted to kill these kids. And I never understood it, because I'm like, why did he even care about these kids? They actually, like, he could have framed them instead. But then, like, watching it this time, I'm like, oh no, they actually hit the guy. But what? Who is this guy? And it's such a poorly executed choice. And now I think, you want to move into part two?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I think one of the funniest things about I Still Know to me is how when they do the killer reveal in this one, and spoiler alert, we're going to tell you who does it, is the way they have to spell it out so specifically in dialogue to make sure you understand who these people are and why they're doing this.
Yes. So I actually like the second one. On paper, I think better than the first one.
I could see that, yeah.
So you had kind of mentioned it, but it's all like on an island, but in a very shining kind of way. It's the end of the season, mm-hmm. So like they're alone, essentially cut off. In the cast on this one,
my gosh, this cast.
So Jeffrey Combs is in this movie. Brandy's in this movie. Mekhi Phifer is in this movie. Jack Black is in this movie.
Oh my God, Jack Black is in this movie. Baby John Hawkes is in this movie.
Yep, John Hawkes. This movie, honestly, has a lot of Identity vibes to it, too. Like
I could see that. Yeah, not just because of Baby John Hawkes.
No, but there's like a dryer.
It's raining. There's a dryer. Oh my God, you're right. There's a body part in the dryer. Yep. It's pouring rain. They're in a hospitality space that is empty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a good companion. Wow, if you're looking to compare some movies, I gotta say. But so like the cast hits, the location mm-hmm. hits.
Yep.
But then again, and then even so the reveal of who the bad guy is feels very Scream, not to like put too fine a point on it.
And but particularly Scream 3, I think.
Yeah. So it ends up, spoiler everybody, one of the bad guys ends up being like her new love Julie's new love interest, which isn't shocking because, like, there's
only so many people on this island now. So, and again, this is something we'll get into when we get into part 3, but like your suspect count keeps getting slimmer and slimmer because they all keep dying, and not in fake ways. It's like, no, we've seen them stabbed in a way where they couldn't have been faking their death. So wait, it can't be this guy now. It can't be this guy now. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's very obviously this guy because he ran away and we didn't find his body, and this seems weird. And but it is very Scream 3 just in terms of the relation and such. But something I like about it too, I don't know if this is intentional. This must have been written very quickly because it comes out a year after the first film.
That I think that needs, you need to really think about that because that turnaround, that's like Saw level turnaround.
It's right? Very much. And this is not, and again, I will say I enjoyed watching this one and thought this was a better movie than I ever did before this go around watching it this way. It was like, oh no, there's a lot here. There are a lot of problems in this movie, but there is a lot that's done really well. And thinking of the speed to market of it, see, what I'm wondering is if they did go to the book and pull something, because in the book, spoiler alert to the book, the person that knows what they did last summer is the brother of the little boy they've killed, who is dating Julie, who has kind of crafted this like other identity. And there's a little bit of that I was like, oh, I wonder if that inspired it in any way, because they had to write very quickly, so who knows?
That's interesting. I don't know that I would have made that connection.
I don't know that I'm right, but
no. But I mean, it's yeah, for a jumping off point, it's a good way to kind of frame this style of story. As I guess as a summer movie, I don't. It's fine, but like I like it as its own movie. Like I almost wish that it was a little bit more divorced from that story, because it hits some really classic slasher and like 90s slasher stuff. I don't know. And then so I have to talk about this because it's my favorite thing about this movie, and I mention it to anybody who will listen to me. But this is how I know the capital of Brazil. So
yep.
The whole thing hinges on, so Brandy and Jennifer Love Hewitt are roommates, and which again, very Scream 2, but they get a phone call from like a radio, and they're like, hey, answer this question, you get a trip. And the question is, what's the capital of Brazil? And Brandy says Rio de Janeiro. And it's like, whoa, you win, great. And then in one of my favorite movie moments, period, of all time, I will stand by this, she's just randomly at the resort looking at a globe and sees that the capital of Brazil is Brasilia. And it's like, and that's when we know all of this has been set up.
Well,
that
here's
is so fucking good.
The other part to that is, if you're watching this movie, and I remember the first time I watched this movie, I did know that the capital was not Rio. And you're watching this, the entire time you're sitting there fuming, because you're like, what the fuck? That's not the fucking capital. You couldn't even, come on, there's a library, an encyclopedia. You couldn't fact check that? You have how stupid. These characters go to Harvard, and nobody's calling them out on this, and they still won. And on one hand, if you're like me, thinking you're so smart and you're smarter than these characters, you then realize how dumb you are, because you're like, oh duh, why didn't you figure out that this was that the contest didn't matter, and you should have known that at that point. But yes, I kind of like the long con of it, that a movie has to like trust itself of like, look, if there's somebody out there that knows the capital, maybe they'll know then that this was obviously a trick, or maybe they're going to be really mad at this movie for the next hour and 20 minutes until they figure out that we knew too. So I respect that.
I think that it's got to be a different experience, like knowing versus not knowing. And I don't even know if like I guess I didn't care. Like it wasn't like I didn't know. I was just like, yeah, whatever. This is what the movie's doing. And I think that's like what it wants you to do.
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, this is the narrative of the film, and I'm not going to question it. So when like it is revealed, like, oh, we all should have been questioning this, like you did.
Yep.
Because you're so observant.
No, I was just mad because I thought I was smart. I think that was more the problem.
But I think like had somebody around had that feeling, you would have been like, well, wait a second, how did we win this? Because we were very wrong. It's I don't know why I like it so much.
No, I'm gonna say like the problems I had. I'm gonna say there's again. I'm like, there's one. No, there's two. There's like seven. Okay, fine. There's a few issues with this movie. I don't know what Jack Black is doing here. I don't know
He's
what
not
that
even
is.
credited.
No, so we don't have like something happened, and I guess, and he wasn't like he was fairly unknown at this point. There's a weird, like I'm watching this movie and I paused it at one point because like it was one of those that I had to say out loud. I'm like, look, because Brandon wasn't watching it, but I had to pause it and like shout at him. I'm like, hey. Thank goodness that we have Black characters in this movie who are like positioned as actual characters, and that one of them lives, because otherwise this movie kills like 3 characters of color in a row in a way that felt really like, ugh, I'm feeling uncomfortable watching this.
Well, there was like a disposability to it.
Yes.
That was like,
You have a maid and a like boat captain and like one other like random character walking by that all die, one, two, three. And there's something very like, ooh, this is not a great look. But okay, well, one of our main characters, or two of our main characters are black. Okay, we kind of, and I don't think they were written that way. I think they were cast when they realized they could get Brandy and then turn this into something like a little bit different. But on paper, otherwise, like, ooh, that would have been an ugly look for a film. So there's that.
I think the overall diversity in casting really helps it from feeling like that.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why I like it. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Brandy's an active participant in the story.
Yeah. And she's good.
To not continuously equate it to Scream. I mean, in Scream, there is a black friend character who really isn't as present.
Yeah.
So it does that better, I think. It's an actual character, not just like a my black friend, which is a trope.
Yes.
Which
Oh,
is
very
weird.
much. Yeah.
Which is just like, hey, yeah, she should be a whole person if she's going to be there, I guess. And she is in this movie. Like, not to say that Brandy and Mekhi Phifer's characters actually get to do anything, but like they're characters that are there.
And they're both
time.
so good. Like I think I mean, Mekhi Phifer is a very good actor. Like he's had a long career for a very good reason. I think he should have had a bigger career. I think he has incredible charisma. He's very good looking. Like he had, I'm sure he's, has good money and has a good agent, but he should have been like the lead of an action franchise at some point in his career. But the two of them, I think, like, they're really good. You want to watch them, like they have a real like charisma and kind of naturalness on camera that just helps this feel more like a movie than I think a lot of movies like this often do.
I agree. It's so weird. I think I might have more problems with this one than the first one, but I also think I like this one more. Maybe because I'm asking more of it. Like I feel like if it had just tweaked a couple things, it could have like been like really fantastic. And maybe that's why I'm being harder on it.
So what do you think it could have done differently?
While Mekhi is great, I think that his character is extremely one note.
Yes.
He's very funny, but what his character has to say isn't.
His character is there to say things to have other characters act on or react to. There is nothing to him as a person.
Yeah, and I like, there are a lot of red herrings in this. I mean, that's like a part of the franchise at this point. Like,
yes.
Because we did it in the first one, and I think it works better in this one. There's a lot of characters where you're like, I don't think it's that person, but the movie is so committed to trying to make you think it is that person that it's kind of fun in like a Scooby-Doo way.
Yes, this does feel very Scooby-Doo.
And I think that the end, what it actually turns out being, isn't as fun as all the red herrings were.
Well, so let's talk about the ending. So Will, who is Gossip Girl dad, and he is there to be the kind of boring, nice guy that, because there's we haven't gotten into the plot of these. You guys know the plots of these, so we're not going to. But he's there to be like the alternate Freddie Prinze Jr. And there's something to like just boring white boy after boring white boy. But when who really has, again, not much presence and doesn't do much, and then it then reveals himself to be, didn't you get it? Will Benson, Ben's son, as in the son of Ben, the guy that you killed last year, or the year before that, and then killed again. Yes, I am his son. It's very funny.
It's because it comes out of nowhere.
It's dumb. It's so dumb.
But
yes.
And it's, I guess, to a degree, like how do you do a good reveal? I don't know. I'm not going to claim that I know all the ways that but it just, as a viewer, it's like, if you need to pause, stop down, remind me of a bunch of stuff and tell me why this person's important, then maybe something was missing.
Well, I think they looked at the audience notes after the first film and realized, oh, our ending was confusing. The identity of our killer was confusing. So we have to make sure we're really clear about it in this one.
That's a really good point. And to circle back about endings, both of these movies have really wild cliffhangers that don't mean anything.
They're so stupid, both of them. I hate that shit. I don't like and again, it can be done well. Carrie does it well. Carrie is the first film to do it in a, maybe not the first, but the first kind of notable film to do it in a way of, our movie is over. We know who lived. We know who died. Here's our final gotcha moment. And is it real? And, with both of these, the first one ends with everything's great. Oh my God, I love college. I'm so smart. I'm doing great. I'm on the honor roll. You're great too. I love you. Oh God, I know what you did last summer. Somebody jumps at me. And then this one ends with, we're both great. We own a home now. A year later? That's how good you do at Harvard? You just graduate and you can buy a house? Electric toothbrushes. They're great. Freddie Prinze Jr. doesn't know how to brush his teeth with them. He's brushing way too hard. You let the toothbrush do the work. But I interrupt myself. And then also, I don't know. I know what you did last summer. It's dumb.
So they're doing a direct legacy sequel to this film, and I really, really, really wish that they would just open at that,
with the being dragged. That's a very also
start the movie there.
Was that the first of that shot ending a movie? Because I feel like we had so many of those in subsequent years of the woman being pulled away as she tries to grab. She's grabbing the ground, but it's aimed right at the camera, so she's trying to grab the camera and then gets pulled away and lights go out. Man.
This is 98. It has to be early in the cycle. It's
pretty early.
Because before then we couldn't drag cameras like that.
No.
We couldn't do shit like that. So yeah, it has to be. I didn't actually think of that. It has to be an early one. Look, trendsetter.
Hey, there's something. I do like that. Another thing about the ending that I think works much better is that they, again, whether they learned their lesson or just figured, well, we got to do, swap things around, is that in the first film, it is Freddie Prinze Jr. who finishes him, if you will. Yep. And in this one, it is not. Freddie Prinze Jr. gets knocked out pretty quickly, and it's Julie who actually gets to kind of do the final stabbing or whatever they do. It pushes them in a grave, and I don't remember how they kill him, but that's important. I think, and that's another reason I think we circled around it. We were talking about Julie as a final girl, why she's unsatisfying. In the first film, not only does she not really redeem herself morally, but also she doesn't even do anything to actually fight. And in this one, she is the one who issues the final blow.
Yeah, I think as a final girl, she is more effective here.
Definitely.
In this movie,
definitely.
Which is strange. I don't know that I thought that until I actively thought that. In the first one, there's the very come and get me scene.
What are you waiting for?
And then there's the same scene in this. Yes. I like it in this one. And there's an argument to be made that she is hypersexualized in this one, more so than in the first one. And I could agree with that. But she looks really pretty in that button-down shirt in the rain. So I'm going to let it go.
That's the other thing I forgot to mention was in the first one how we get happy Julie and then sad Julie. And she's sad because her hair is flat and her bangs are now sad.
Oh, that's true. Her hair
is so bouncy. In the opening scene of that first movie, that was a Pantene ad right there. But in this one, and I think that, again, that's the other thing about Jennifer Love Hewitt that you and I both read interviews with her around the Heartbreakers time where she really talked about this of she, because of her build, because she was a petite woman with a, slim waist and happened to have a very large chest, it's the kind of body that it's very, no matter how you dress, it basically...
Mama, yes.
Yeah.
I've lived it.
I was going to say, as somebody who has large breasts, I deal with this all the time. It's either you're showing them or you're hiding them. And it's... So you have a costume designer and a director looking at her in this movie saying yeah, let's go make the tank top a little lower. And no matter what you do, her body is going to kind of, do what it does to a lot of people. But this movie, I think, does. It chooses very specific outfits for her to look very sexy. And it's raining, so now we've got wet t-shirts and all of that stuff. And, it's not... And yet, the other thing, the note I wrote here, there's a scene where, because Brandy and Mekhi Phifer are a couple, And so they're sharing a bedroom, and like you hear the like loud sounds of a bed moving back and forth, and then it cuts to them, and they're just jumping on the bed, which is really cute. And I laughed because I'm like, oh, that's actually a really funny reveal. But then also immediately I was like, oh, right, because we couldn't have sex in the 90s movies. But yet we can sexualize our lead, but we can't actually like have sex. It's a very weird time.
It is a very weird time. Yeah, I don't know. I think I like this movie.
I actually did like this a lot more than I thought I would. It has problems. It really does.
Oh,
we mentioned a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it's entertaining. It's the setting. Something I love they do. When they get to the Bahamas, it is a party. It is busy. It is pretty. There are people outside. There's a fountain, all that. And then by the next day, everybody has left but them. And now it is gray and it is empty and it is raining. And I think that was, again, it's like, oh, you've made what could have been a boring sequel. Immediately, you visually made it interesting, right? You made it rain. You're on an island. That's cool. Right away.
Yep. That setting is the first win. Like, the fact that they took it out of that town, which would have just been the movie again.
Because they're already relying on really the formula of the first movie in terms of we've got two girls and two guys, and one's the jock, one's this. Like they're already doing that, which you kind of, again, if you're making a sequel less than a year after you've released your first film, you have to do that to an extent because you don't have scripts laying around that you can pull from. But so there's a formulaic aspect, but then they found ways to make this interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I cannot wait to hear what you think about the third one.
I know. Okay. One more thing about this one before we pause and go to the third one.
Okay.
Because I want to peel back again to talk about the actual story of Will was the fisherman Ben was the fisherman, and again, he killed his daughter's boyfriend, and then he was killed by the kids, and then he came back to life, and then killed a bunch of them, and came back, and so on. And all through this time, he has a son, who the son then, for the last year, has been befriending Julie, and inserting himself into her life in order to get her to this island, and kill her, and kill Freddie Prinze Jr., and whatever else. Where did the Ben meet Julie? How did they meet? Do you remember in this movie? Like, how do they know each other?
Her boyfriend?
No,
the boy?
The boy, yeah, the Ben's son.
They were just in like a class together, right?
Yeah, where does Julie take classes?
At a college?
At, like, what college? Do you remember what college that she's going to? She's very smart.
I don't. Did you already say it?
No, maybe I did. I don't know. But I believe Julie and Brandy are students at Harvard.
Oh, okay. Maybe that sounds right. Yeah, okay. So, but like, it's just a good coincidence. He was already going there. So do you, so Ben or Will, whoever, this fisherman who, because we met Anne Heche. No, that's not his sister. Okay. We met other people from the town. Like, Ben has spent... I guess I'm trying to figure out where the planning started. Was it like when Ben was 13 and Dad was like, okay, look, you need to go to Harvard because at some point in life, you've got to be in the same place as the girl who's going to kill your sister. You know what I would have loved if he was just on campus. It would have made more sense instead of him being clearly a student. Yeah. And then there was like a reveal that or even like if it was a throwaway line that he was never enrolled. Right. Like even something like, they just let anybody walk around those campuses. Yeah. That would have been fucking. It would have been great. Righteous. Yeah. Because otherwise that's a very big coincidence. Because it's not like. I never thought of that. It's Harvard. Like one of the hardest colleges to get into. Like it's not like, I just happened to sneak up on you at, North Carolina Community College. Like, I could have bought that. But instead it's like, oh no, we're in the most difficult law school to get into, and what do you know? What a great, I'm here too. They could have just met at like work, that club that they go to could have just been like a club that they go to a lot, and there are other ways to do it for sure. It would have involved like a level of commitment to this plan that then I want the movie to be about that. Yeah,
I want like an in-between movie, like a prequel movie where it's Ben like taking his LSATs over and over again to try to get into Harvard.
Because
Yeah.
that's some Saw shit.
Right? Oh, yes, totally. Yeah,
Like,
where
we've
you
been
are
planning our
actively.
whole lives. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes into that.
For
Like,
sure. Yeah.
who wrote his letters of recommendation? I'd like to know. It's a lot. Most interesting part of this movie. I kid, because I actually did find it interesting, but that really stuck with me. Yeah, the last thing was that Freddie Prinze Jr. runs weird. I don't know if we've...
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah,
I
I
wish
thought-
he was in this movie more. He's not really.
I don't know that I wanted more. I find him dull. I love that him and Sarah Michelle Gellar have seemed to have built a lovely life, and they met on this is the first film, and that's wonderful. But he seems like a good guy. I just don't find him interesting on camera.
I agree. I can agree. I think he's cute, and I think that
Good looking, very good looking.
that goes a long way. I don't know. I don't like sidelining him. If he's in the
That's
movie,
fair.
let him be in
Let
the
him
movie.
be. That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about we take a quick break so I can go baste my roast? And
Oh, is that a euphemism?
no, I actually have to baste my I got some slow cooker. No, it's not in the slow cooker. It's in the oven, and that's the complicated part. But yes, I have some pork that I have to go moisten up a little bit.
Go moisten your pork.
All
baby.
right, we're going to be back to talk about the thrilling conclusion of the I Know saga.
When my baby smiles at me, I go to Rio de Janeiro, Mile Mio. I go wild and then I have to do the samba and la bamba. Now I'm not the kind of person with a passionate persuasion or dancer or romancer, but I give into the rhythm and my feet follow the beating of my heart. Whoa, when my baby
We are eagerly back because it is time to talk about a movie that has, I think, Christine, is this your identity?
I have put a lot of myself into this movie for some reason.
Tell me about the first time you encountered I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer from 2006.
Okay. So the first time I watched it was probably like 2014.
Okay.
I was living in Austin, and we rented this movie from, I believe, Vulcan Video, which was one of the video stores at the time. Just because it was like, oh, I don't even know that I knew this existed.
I don't think anybody did. This went straight to DVD, but because this wasn't even a time of streaming yet.
Yeah, so it was like, okay. So we rented it, and it's obviously like very low budget. Like, you can tell it's a low budget movie. It's definitely more low budget than the other two.
Mhm.
So it kind of tells you what it is right away. But then it's so strange, and like the setting is strange.
Yep.
The way that the myth is realized in this film is strange. The way that the fisherman
Mm-hmm.
is realized is strange. So then it became just this weird thing that people didn't know about. And very rarely do I have one of those. I don't
Yes.
feel like I'm the person that has the weird thing you don't know about. I'm the one you tell about the weird thing, and then I'm like, oh, that's cool and weird, thanks. So back then we used to do movie nights, and you would have to bring a movie to the movie night, and it was a good idea to bring something that people hadn't seen.
Mhm.
So I decided that this is the movie we're going to bring for the movie night. We're going to make people
choice.
watch this fucking movie. I cannot tell. Please watch this movie. Don't let us spoil
Yes.
it for you,
Yes.
because it is so weird and so shocking in some ways. But so I have this group of people watching this movie, and please, when it turns out that fisherman is now a ghost, no one understood what was happening.
No.
It was like, what's it? Hold on, did I miss something? Because that's the feeling when you're watching this, is what
Yep.
did I miss?
Yep.
What is happening all of
It
a
is
sudden?
such an abrupt, oddly executed reveal, and I loved it.
It what this movie chooses to do and not do.
Yes.
Look, I don't know. So that's my relationship with this movie. I think one of the really striking things about a lot of those types of slashers in the 90s, like Scream, like this, is that it was just a guy wearing a thing, and it could be any guy wearing anything if they have a problem with you. Now, all of a sudden, flash forward to 2006, the fisherman is like the representation of revenge and evil.
Yes.
He's not even really a guy anymore.
Nope. He is the manifestation of vengeance for unclaimed manslaughter.
I do not understand how we got here. I don't feel like they properly set us up for that.
No, and all of that is kind of amazing.
It's just like, wait a second. So I recently wrote about this movie because
I've read it. It's great.
Could not get my head around it. Basically what happens is, just to give
give a plot synopsis of this, because even though we're telling everybody watch this movie, but if the people haven't, please just tell everybody what happens in it.
So basically it's set in Colorado, which couldn't be further away from the coastal town and then the tropical island. So now we're in Colorado, but it's an off season, so that actually kind of works.
Oh yeah.
And it's these kids who want to do a prank. And in doing the prank, one of the kids dies. And all the kids involved in the prank, like, have this guilt about it, which sounds extremely similar to what happens in the first movie. But, like, it becomes kind of meta in that the prank is a fisherman-style prank because the fisherman exists in their universe. And they also have the original fisherman's hook, which is somehow like imbued with the spirit of vengeance now.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, right? I think.
I mean, they said that was $35 on eBay to buy the fisherman's hook.
Yeah, but I think that there's like an intonation, or at least like the idea that it's actually the original hook. And that it's maybe haunted, but even if it's not, pretend I made all that up. It doesn't matter. They still kill this kid by accident. He dies in this prank, and they all feel really bad. So the next year, they all start dying. So the natural thinking would be like, oh, this kid's police officer dad, or maybe his, I don't know, I'm making things up.
Or his cousin,
or
his, the other police officer because everybody in this movie is in love with our final girl. So it's like the police officer who has a crush on the final girl. Maybe it's him. It's like the roster of suspects. You're like, yeah, well, it's got to be that guy. It's got to be that guy. Okay, well, who's left? I guess it's that guy. Wait a minute, no one's left.
And then because people like the second one, as we discussed, people are dying. Red herrings consistently die. But then all of a sudden, dude is like blipping out of existence on the top of a ski lift. Like,
yeah.
I know. And then his blood is black goo.
Yeah,
what?
Obviously. And the only way you can kill him is to stab him with the hook, is the haunted hook, but also you can then push him into a snowblower and he will disintegrate.
I couldn't remember why I thought the hook was haunted, but it is because the hook has some kind of
because the hook seems to be the only thing that can hurt him. So it's got to be a magic hook.
Is it any hook?
Oh, I don't know, because we only see that one hook. I mean, technically, when she pushes him into like the turbine, that's kind of hooky, right? So like, is it just any metal sharp object, perhaps?
So she ends up killing the ghost.
Yes.
Snow machine. How do I say
think it's
that?
like a snowblower. I think because it's Colorado. I think that's what's supposed to be.
But it's like the thing that, grinds up ghosts.
Yeah, it's kind of like to me, it's the same thing in like a Children of the Corn movie that grinds up the corn. Like
exactly.
It's a plow,
ghost, corn,
right? A snowplow. Maybe it's a snowplow. I don't know. We're not scientists. We're just movie watchers.
What was that choice?
To push him in there?
To make him a ghost.
So, now, have you done any have you been able to learn anything about oh man, me neither.
I read that's why I watched the features, because I own this DVD. Of course I do. That's why I watched the features, because I was like, I need to fucking know.
Right.
I promise you, it never gets addressed. So the director seemed like a young hip dude,
So
like just like getting his feet wet in the industry. Young hip dude.
I think he's French, right? The
Yes,
director? Yeah.
he's French. Yes.
And he's worked a lot since. The only other like film he did was Stomp the Yard, which I did not see, but did well. And was a very different movie from this, and it was a studio film. After that, he's done TV, but he's done like extensive TV. Like he's worked on every TV show. He's clearly like well employed and probably jumps from show to show. So he's had a really good career. Just this, I think, is one of only 2 of his feature films. The writer is interesting. The writer is Michael Weiss, who seems to be a specialist in sequels of franchises that have either gone long in the tooth or that nobody necessarily realized were sequeling.
I wish that's what I could be known for.
I know, my God. So he wrote Butterfly Effect 2, which is terrible, and the screenplay. And again, you never know on a writer like how much of it is theirs and how much of it isn't. But Butterfly Effect 3 is actually great and weird. Butterfly Effect 3 is kind of actually akin. Like if I was making a list of movies that I would put in a I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer grouping, I would put Butterfly Effect 3 in that grouping, because it's a similar thing where it's like long in a franchise, does something really new and really weird. So that. But Butterfly Effect 2 is terrible, and it's like this movie about all white people being white and terrible. So there's that. He did Hostel 3, which is not great, but again, I don't know how much of that was his script. And he did The Scorpion King 4. Many things I need to talk about here, and I apologize because we're here to talk about I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, but I need to address 2 parts about this. 1, were you aware that there are at least 4 installments of The Scorpion King?
I am. Funny that you mention it, because those aforementioned movie nights, that is a franchise that we dug into.
Okay. Have you seen part 4?
No, I have not.
Can you look at the cast on part 4? Scorpion King 4, Quest for Power. Yeah. This movie, written by the writer of I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. The cast includes Will Kemp, who's a Hallmark mainstay. He's in all the Hallmark movies, and he's actually pretty charming. Barry Bostwick, Michael Biehn, M. Emmett Walsh, Lou Ferrigno, and Rutger Hauer. I don't know which one is the Scorpion King. I have no idea which one is the 4th of the Scorpion Kings, but I need to see this movie on that cast alone. Do I need to see the first 3? Because I've never actually seen any of them.
No, so I have seen the first 3, and that's why I haven't seen the 4th one.
I see. Interesting.
It's a lot. If they famously have really bad
CGI.
Effects. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think there is CGI in this movie. This movie is
that would be
very practical.
Step up.
Yes.
Oh, is this one all talking? Maybe it's better.
Oh no, I meant I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh no,
that's what I meant.
Yeah,
I guess there is CGI goo.
That man is a ghost.
Yeah. What was I thinking? I'm thinking of part 2. Part 2 was very practical. Yeah. No, there's glowy eyes and bloody goo, and yeah, I'm completely wrong.
The first time I saw it, I was like, it ended, and we were like, was that man a ghost? Like, we didn't know. And then we literally had to sit there and go like, well, he had glowy eyes, he could disappear, he did have black blood, so I think he was real, and I think he was a ghost.
As you're saying all this, you're like, yeah, because there's no conversation about it. We get down to the last suspect, right? The last person that could possibly be the all-know killer. It's the cop who seems like, yeah, he's a shifty cop. He clearly has things going on. Gotta be him. No, it's not him, because there's fishermen who just stabbed him and killed him. Okay, so now, now fisherman just, his eyes glowed. Now we know he's, and he gets shot, right? Because you shoot him. The cop shoots him like 2 feet away with a shotgun, and it doesn't do anything. So that's when you're like, you can't, there's no bulletproof vest for that. And then you realize, yeah, he's ghost spirit vengeance thing.
So strange.
It's so strange. It really,
it's really weird.
It's so weird, and I love that it did that. And now, the other thing, I'm curious if you felt this at all. There was another movie franchise that I kept thinking of watching this one, some for obvious reasons.
Oh, I can't wait.
I'm watching this, and it opens in it's like amusement park at the summer. There's a prank. There's this happening, and immediately I'm like, this has like Final Destination 3 vibes about it. And then I'm watching, I'm like, that one guy looks a lot like the guy from Final Destination 2. Oh, he is from Final Destination 2. So the entire time I also had that going. And the other part of this is Final Destination 3 is not really, it's a sequel to 1 and 2, but not really, right? It's separate characters going through something identical to what characters in the first 2 films went through, but there's no repeating characters, but there is a mention at one point of like, oh, I was doing some internet research and I found this weird thing that happened a couple of years ago in this other town where death was stalking them, which is kind of what happens in this one, right? It's like, oh yeah, 10 years ago, that fish guy I was made up urban legend I was talking about. Wait, he did actually kill a bunch of kids who were part of a manslaughter, who then this. So there was, and again, whether I can't, not even sure what was made when, but it felt very like, oh, that's weird how much those two kind of floated around each other in that way.
That's really interesting. It's hard. This one starts at like a carnival,
which is how the first part 3 opens. Final Destination.
And unfortunately, that type of carnival fair amusement park stuff is rare. So when you see it, it's kind of like, ooh.
It's so pleasing to the eye to watch a horror movie that has carnival-ness to it.
Yep, definitely.
The redeeming feature of Child's Play 3.
Did you know he was going to be a ghost, or were you?
No.
Okay.
No, I went into this knowing, I knew how passionate you were about this movie. I knew that you had written about it, but that I wasn't supposed to read it until I watched this movie because it would give things away. So I'm watching this movie and I'm like, okay, I know it's going to be, there's got to be something to it. And I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, this is, it's very 2006. Like the fashion,
yes, it really is.
The I'm a brunette, so I'm a bad girl. Like the little things about it that felt very of its time. But I'm not getting it yet. Like I'm like, okay, this feels very of its time, but I don't know what, I wouldn't think an hour into this movie, this is one of Christine's most fascinating movies. And then as soon as it happened, I was like, okay, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but it kind of does make sense in that way. If you get what I'm saying.
So it's like all of a sudden, if we all show up to the theater for Scream 8, and then it's like, oh yeah, Ghostface is like a real ghost now.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like,
by the way, it's Amityville Horror. Just go with it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it though. Yeah. We'll clarify it. But he's totally a ghost because he's black blood.
And it's something. The frustrating thing about this is like it makes it like you want to talk about it with other movies, but it's something you and I both have said. Like we love when a movie does genre switch.
Yes.
But like you never want to tell somebody a movie does that because then you're giving away. And this one, like, imagine like really trying to convince somebody like, no, sit down, please, I lent you this movie, I want you to watch it. And they're gonna get like 70 minutes into it and be like, this is just another shitty I Know movie. What the? Wait, what? Oh, it's over now. What? It's wild.
Very strange. I do wish maybe if we were just going like full supernatural with it, that maybe it could have started earlier. So like some of the other stuff could have maybe been more interesting, or a part of me loves how out of nowhere it seems, but also it's like if your killer is now not bound by the laws of physics and nature, then why
was he ever bound by the laws of physics and nature?
Why isn't it more fun?
Yeah.
But there is a couple, I will say, like, there's a couple decent things. Like, they are in this abandoned, like, resort, ski lodge type thing.
Yep.
And all that stuff is really cool. There's, like, a kitchen thing.
Yeah. The setting, again, like, that this one is Colorado. Again, why Colorado? I have no idea. Maybe because it was close to Canada where they probably filmed it. But that it feels like, in all 3 movies, where they're taking place is such a big part of it. So you're in Colorado. So you get a lot of like shots of trees and shots of mountains and all that. You get a ski lift. You get abandoned or empty resort because it's, off season in Colorado in a ski town. And the final sequence where you are running through an empty big space that has like an industrial kitchen, so there's different implements you could use. All of that is cool and is just a weird coincidence, I think, of this franchise. I can't imagine that was ever like in the line notes or something you have to do if you're making an I Know movie, is have a memorable setting. But it's funny how that really does come into play for all three.
Yeah, and it's like one of my favorite things about it, which I think elevate the franchise for me. It makes great use of its locations, and I don't know that we can say the same. I keep comparing it to Scream,
but I mean, yeah, Scream in New York City, quote unquote.
That was its own thing.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I know. But even like, I don't have a problem with it being perpetually set in Woodsboro or in college. But when these movies say they're doing something, they're doing it. It is a coastal town that plays into it. It is a resort that plays into it. Like it's fun and cool. Good use of like an abandoned Colorado ski resort off season too.
Yeah, very much.
Like you, all this production value just because you're like in this big weird place.
Yeah. And then you get, again, thinking of the era when, spoiler alert, so let's talk about our favorite cast member here, bad girl brunette, Tori DeVito, aka Melissa Hastings, in Pretty Little Liars.
You know what? She is such a mid-2000s, like, edgy badass.
Yes!
She should be the poster child. Like, if you're ever looking for, like, no, you know how we talk about like, oh, we love 90s goth girls and horror movies, but there is like this kind of like edgy screamo emo kind of like Hollywood girl,
right?
Like,
it's the like, we can't get Eliza Dushku. What's next?
Yes,
who's next
like,
on the call sheet?
Just this thick bang and like a big belt. Oh.
Yeah, dark hair. Her death scene when because she's also a rock star, and it's very like Avril Lavigne kind of song.
That song.
So when she dies, she falls off a big building, so her body is like splayed out in a weird little angle, and she's wearing like black leather. Are kind of like what I wear when I cook things that have oil that like covers up from your wrist to your shoulder. She's got that, and she's got these like big chunky shoes, and the way she's positioned because she's fallen off of a big thing, I'm like, she's a Bratz doll. Like she looks like somebody like the director's daughter like dropped her Bratz girl and he was like, oh, that's my tableau right there.
It's very strange. That character is very strange.
Yeah. Well, also because you are back to like young people who are kind of assholes and have very little, in this case even more so, I feel, because like they all waffle, right? Like this thing happens and it's their friend who was in on it. Like they were doing a very irresponsible prank, right? Did we talk about like they have somebody show up as the Hook monster, chase them in a big public space so that, and I thought like they were videotaping it, but nobody was videotaping it. They just wanted their friend to do like a wild skateboard trick. And
like
he does.
Shock everybody at the fair, right? Yeah. That was like a big part of it.
Like if it was a little bit more of like, oh, we're videotaping this and we're going to send it in to whatever Ashton Kutcher show used to be, like then maybe something. But no, they just do it, which is weird. But that this happens, and the main thing is like they staged it and it was meant to be safe, but somebody moved the mattress, right? They had a mattress for when the skateboard dude jumps off the cliff, he would land in a safe space. And we never find out who moves it.
Yeah, I mean the ghost, right?
So did the ghost, does he do this as a test? Does he does he sacrifice somebody so that to test that somebody's white friends, to see if they will do the right thing and come forward and say, this is kind of our fault, or they will hide it and then he's like, yes, I have my summer of 2006 planned out now. Do you think it's a test? Did he move it?
The second that Hook sells on eBay, he gets an alert. and he's like, oh shit, the Hook is on them. Oh, he's inside the Hook. So he's attached.
So he's like watching it. You're right. He doesn't even need the Google alert. He's like now front row seat.
It's like a genie in a lamp. Like
yeah. This works.
So now they get the Hook. He's like, okay, what are they going to do with the Hook? Oh, it looks like they're going to play a prank. If this goes poorly, you know what? I'm bored. Why don't I move the thing? And then the kid will, and then I'll have something to do this summer.
I like it. Yeah,
It's
great. I'm in
so
Colorado.
strange.
Nothing to do in Colorado in the summer, so I gotta kill some
off
kids.
season.
Yeah,
It's so strange.
it really is.
But it's also kind of fun in like a time capsule way.
Very much. I mean, again, the fashion, the way, like, it's a weird, because, I mean, there's one character who has a little bit more of pathos, but he dies first, right? And that's Roger, the kid who's kind of like the first one to be like, hey, maybe we should tell everybody, wait, we did something really bad. Because they never really seem to think they did anything that bad, which is another running theme of these movies.
Yeah, there's if they started out as like self-reflective morality tales, they really don't end up going that way. It's kind
No.
of just like, how can we make sure these characters aren't really on the hook? No pun intended. For it.
Ha Well, and that's something that I think is very, to go back to the original source material, right? The book ends with the two characters who are remaining together saying, okay, we're going to tell. Like we've gone through all this, our lives are safe, everybody knows who is going to kill us now, but now we have to go to, like, it's not that clear, but it's very clear that they are saying at the end, we're going to take responsibility for what we did last summer.
Mm-hmm.
And that never happens in these movies. Nobody ever actually ultimately stands up and says, hey, by the way, because at the end of this one in particular, where now the chief of police, his deputy, what is it, like 5 other young people, all dead, slaughtered, like brutally slaughtered in weird ways now. And you've got these 2 remaining young people who survive, and like the last cop standing is like, okay, well, are you sure he's gone? They're like, yeah, he's gone. And like, what is the police report after that? And like, it is very clear to me at the end of this, because we see 1 year later, and we get the same kind of cliffhanger.
Yep,
but 1 year later, like, she's thriving, sounds like he's thriving, everybody's happy. You wouldn't be happy if you, 1 year later, had, like, somehow had to pay for inadvertently causing the death of somebody 2 years earlier. So it's like the main thing on this, like, yeah, you'll get punished by having your friends killed, but you still don't ever have to actually come forward and admit what you did last summer, or that summer, or 8 summers earlier.
No, it is true. It does not really. It never really focuses on that aspect.
Yeah,
That's okay, I guess.
I mean, when the alternate is, it also involves a demon fishman with glowing red eyes who bleeds black goo, and his only source of weakness is the hook with which he uses to kill others. Like, yeah, it's totally cool. What a ride. What a wild
truly is.
ride.
I am extremely excited about this new movie.
Yeah.
I hope it lives up to these previous 3.
I mean, that's the thing, is like, now that we can look, because I mean, so you had between 97 and 2006, right? So a 9-year spread of 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
2 of which were released so close, and then one that dripped out later without any involvement from anybody, but within the universe. So, as a franchise, like, how do you look at this? What is this comparable to? Where does it stand for you in the, echelon of all horror trios and franchises?
Well, I mean, I think it's really hard to compare to anything.
Yeah.
I think the amount of time in between is strange. All the way around. The fact that it was like boom, boom, one then the next, and then like a huge stretch of time. Because like the Scream movies, drink every time Christine says Scream in this.
But I mean, again, like it is like there is no I Know What You Did Last Summer without Scream.
And it is a trilogy, and most franchise movies did not stop at 3. Granted, this is not stopping at 3 either. If we do get this sequel, but that's also strange too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm looking at the Cabin Fever DVD, and I'm like, is it like Cabin Fever?
Yeah, I don't know that this has a counterpart, but it is. I think the concept, right, of like young people being involved in a situation in which they're responsible but not entirely responsible, right? It's not like, oh, I shot someone and my friends all covered it up. Like, no, I was driving and I hit somebody, so it was dark out, right? That's the first film.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it was we played a prank that went terribly wrong, which is every late 70s, early slasher anyway. So it's one of these like, okay, so you've got young people who made the wrong decision, but you can understand the decision, right? And the first one in particular, where they all have very bright futures ahead of them. And that's what the first act of that movie is all about, establishing who's going to college and who's won a beauty pageant and all that. So I think the frustrating thing for me in looking at all three is that, like, what I was saying before, the films never contend with the fundamental wrongness of their action. They're punished, and the ones who survive and like emerge victorious still never have to ever deal with the fact that what they did was really wrong. So I would like, for the next one, I really hope that is something that it actually takes into account. Because I think these movies, as much as like, oh, people die brutally, I think it lets the final girls off too easily in another view.
And truly, I think maybe to echo that, yeah, some more trying to live in the spirit of Lois's original creations. Like, yeah, I think maybe they need to learn a lesson or self-reflect, deal with the gray morality of their situation.
Yeah.
Because, like, the dude is a murderer. They should have dealt with the fact that, like, oh, I don't know how I feel about the fact that, like, we killed a murderer. But nobody really even talks about it.
And had they gone back, that's the other part, too, when you think about it. If you were to go back to the first one, if they had gone to the cops, right? If they hit this guy with their car and called the cops, or when Johnny Galecki's car drove by, they said, look, you have to go get an ambulance here.
Yeah. What
happens? The ambulance picks up the body of this guy who is probably dying, or who knows, because apparently he's magic. And it's not the good guy who died. So maybe that guy still lives, or now this guy comes to life and is like, oh, is somehow tied to the death of this other guy who maybe he didn't bury correctly. Like, we don't know. But it's like them going to the cops for that dead body would not only have like saved everybody down the line, but also like would have punished a murderer from the very beginning. Like, and it wouldn't have been Freddie Prinze Jr.
It's really interesting. I think that these movies might be a little bit more fun than people think.
Yeah, especially now, if you, like me, watched these in the 90s and were like, I don't know, it wasn't very good, it was a Scream ripoff. Like, yeah, back then it was. Give it another glance. I'm telling you, they're fun in a weird way. And if you ever wanted to watch Jack Black die, you get to in part 2.
Wild stuff.
God,
wild
that
stuff.
Movie. Yeah.
It's so strange. Yeah, Zach had said something about Jennifer Love Hewitt being an executive producer. This is just all something somebody else said to me, so I don't know if any of it's true. But he expressed that it's his understanding that she likes to cast interesting people because she also did interesting casting on The Ghost Whisperer.
Okay.
So I don't know how much of the interesting casting in the second one has to do directly with her, but I like to believe that it does because it's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I mean, Jeffrey Combs, man. What's Jeffrey Combs doing there? Everything.
I like to believe that she is a cool, interesting person that wanted cool, interesting genre people in her movie.
Why not? Yeah, I'll buy it.
And I think that's rad if it's true.
And the next one currently, because it's gone through development hell for a while. At one point, Mike Flanagan was attached to making a continuation, but now it's 2 ladies, which is cool. Jennifer, Caitlin Robinson,
super cool.
Yeah, I don't know either of them, but both the writer and the director are 2 different women. I'm not familiar with either of their work, but one of them also was attached to a Center Stage TV series, which would be very exciting for me. So already I'm like, okay, so I vibe with her. You know, we get along. We have things to talk about. One other thing that I think we need to talk about before we go that I thought, so I get my $10 DVD set from Amazon, and when I get to the third one and I put it in my DVD player, it's a 2006 DVD, so you know you can picture what that means. And what it means when you turn it on, the first thing that happens is a trailer plays, and it was only one movie trailer, and then it went right to the menu. I don't know if you watched your DVD of this, but what was the trailer? Do you remember?
I don't.
Oh, it is a Christine movie. And by Christine movie, I mean, you are probably, I mean, I'm in this group too, but we are probably only one of the 436 people who have watched this movie.
What is it?
This movie that has a population 436.
Oh my God, you're right. Population 436.
Yes.
Yeah, that's at the front of my DVD.
Yes, and it just, if anybody doesn't know Population 436, Christine, do you want to talk about it? I know you've written and talked about it before.
Population 436. Okay, so I talked about it on a podcast. If you want to hear me talk about this on a podcast, Certified Forgotten Podcast, you should just listen to that podcast anyways. It's good. I was on that podcast with my two friends, Matt. One of my friends named Matt said that he liked it better than Midsummer. And I said, oh yeah, it's a better movie than Midsummer. I don't know what we were doing. I don't know if I believe that, but it's Fred Durst, isn't it, everybody?
Fred Durst, who was also in I Saw the TV Glow.
Limp Bizkit. Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
No, I am not. He has a small part. He's good. Who knew?
I'm convinced that myself and this filmmaker would be best friends if we just knew each other.
I believe that. I do believe that. Yes.
Because, come on, who else puts Fred Durst in their movie?
Well, Michelle McLaren, who made Population 436.
That's true.
Yeah.
Population 436. Not a good movie, or better than Midsummer.
I like it. I like that movie. I only watched it once, but it is for anybody who doesn't know, it is Jeremy Sisto and Fred Durst apparently. It is sort of like not the lottery. It reminded me of the lottery, but it has like Shirley Jackson vibes. I'd say
big Shirley Jackson energy. Yeah.
And it's about a census taker. So if you were like, I don't know, there aren't many horror films about a census taking, then like this is your one. So become one of the 436 people who have seen it.
Yeah, I forgot it existed, apparently, up until 5 seconds ago.
Yes, I was just so happy when that played on the DVD, because I'm like, oh, everything about this is just screaming Christine now.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that was my time.
It was a good time. 2006, folks. Please. I feel like we have done a lot to get people to watch all three movies, but in particular, I'll Always Know. It is zany.
It is. You had to buy it. It's not streaming anywhere.
I don't think this one is streaming. I think it is rentable on like Apple, or again for $10 you get all three movies on DVD.
I think I found the DVD at like Walmart for like $3 or something.
I can
absurd
definitely
like that.
see that happening. Yeah. Do you have any more to say about the I Know series franchise?
I don't think so. I really truly love it. Any negative thing I said is just for discussion's sake. I would hang up with you and watch them right now.
I will definitely watch them again, and I never thought I would say that a few years ago. So yeah they've aged well. They make choices. You know, they do things that you don't quite expect, again, especially the third one. But even in part two, you didn't have to make that movie to have made a quick sequel to the first movie. And I think there was some wild ideas here and there, and they come out, and all three are executed well enough for what they're doing.
I mean, that's all you can ask for, right?
I would say. So with that being said, everybody drive carefully, okay?
Oh, shit.
Don't go on eBay and buy like serial killer memorabilia and then play with it and then be irresponsible about, I suppose, like also, like, I hate pranks. I think we've also talked about that. Pranks are dangerous and bad and people die, as you can see, and then more people die because you don't admit that you were stupid in pranks. So just don't do any of those things. Yeah,
and if a radio station calls you out of the blue and gives you a question and then tells you you're right, maybe just do a quick Google.
Quick fact check. Quick fact check.
Make sure you really were right. It could save you a lot of problems.
It could. Because I was, and you took the right lesson from that, because I was going to say, learn your geography, everybody. Practice your country capitals, because it's important for Jeopardy and other trivia. But that wouldn't have made any difference, because then if they were right, then they still would have been slaughtered. So, you were right.
They need to be more discriminating against who they accept free trips from.
It's true. That's very true.
And that's a lesson we can all.
I think so. All right, everybody. Enjoy your summer.
Yeah, happy summer. Don't get hooked.
Ladies and gentlemen, for my friend, my very best friend. Get up here, please. Julie James.
Hey, in the house, in the house, Julie, 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 Julie.
All right. Thank you, Carla. You're welcome.
First and afraid, I was petrified.